hope can help you. You can ask questions on Facebook. We're keeping an eye on that. This is going to be a discussion about the issues that landlords and tenants face as the moratorium comes to an end. And I think it's going to go fast. These Zooms tend to go very fast and as we get through them. So I'll read a couple notes here. So if you see me looking down, I just want to make sure I introduce all our guests and share a few things. Welcome to ABC7's Town Hall Series, our Chicago Voices of the Community. I'm Rob Elgis with ABC7. Pleased to be your host for this week's Town Hall. We took the month of August off for obvious reasons, and glad to be back here with an array of topics for upcoming events we hope you can tune into. We do hope one day we can do these town halls in person again. We will. But this is a great way, I think, for people to be from their offices or at home to watch and hopefully learn some information. Today, we're discussing the impact of the Illinois eviction moratorium, which, as you know, has been extended several times, but is due to end on September 18th, after tomorrow. Many Chicagoans still facing the negative financial impacts of COVID-19, resulting in a real concern about rent affordability. And this is prevalent among low-income communities and Chicago's communities of color, as these communities are more likely to rent their homes. And so the end of the eviction ban could further impact Chicago's communities. They've already been disproportionately affected by this pandemic. Our guests today represent an important effort to address the impact of evictions, a true collaboration of key stakeholders and nonprofits, both for renters and landlords, many of whom are from the same community. They represent that mom and pop ownership, not disconnected corporate owners who oftentimes don't represent many property owners. I want to remind everyone, this is a discussion. It tends to be less Q&A. We'll probably have some questions amongst each other, maybe some we can answer for you. It becomes a conversation, different voices and experiences. Everyone encouraged to speak up and add their comments. And we strive to do these town halls, leaving viewers informed, inspired, and hopeful. So thanks again for being with us this afternoon. Let's introduce our panel. You probably recognize a lot of them. Maybe some of you have dealt with each other. Maybe they've helped you as well. First, Cook County Clerk Iris Martinez. Good to see you. Iris, thank you. It's been some time. I think last time I saw you here at the station for one of our events, so we appreciate you joining us. Let me tell you a little bit about the Cook County Clerk. On November 3rd, 2020, she made history being elected the first Latina clerk of the Circuit Court, the largest of 24 judicial courts in Illinois, as well as one of the largest unified court systems in the U.S. Sworn into her first term in the Illinois State Senate on January 8th, 2003 to represent the people of Illinois as 20th legislative district. I believe last time we saw you, you were a state senator, now the county clerk. Made history once again, serving as assistant majority leader from 2007 to 2008, a position never before held by a Latina. Thank you for being here again. We really appreciate your time, Iris.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Janet Hunter, on my screen, she's just below Iris, the Chief Deputy Clerk, Civil Division Clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, been with this office for 17 years. If there's an expert in this panel about something, she's right there. She knows her stuff. For 3 years, she served as a manager in the motions 1401 post-judgment and return date departments of the Civil Division, promoted to Assistant Chief Deputy Clerk of the First Municipal Civil Division, served in that role for 7 years before advancing to her current position of Chief Deputy Clerk. Janet, good to see you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you for inviting me as well.
Kyla Krobach. I think I got that right, Carla, right? Good to see you.
It's close, Krobach. But
Krobach, and I just asked her about that. Krobach, supervising attorney at Carpel's Legal Aid. I get that right. She joined in 2008, concentrating on housing law. Carpel's is the hub of the legal aid network, providing people with direct access to free attorney consultations. Serving, this is an incredible stat, 1 out of 4 legal aid cases in Cook County. It's a lead partner with Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt Early Resolution Program, in addition to the statewide programs, Eviction Help Illinois, New Leaf Illinois, the Illinois Armed Forces Legal Aid Network Hotline, which Carla supervises, and Covert Health Illinois. She began her legal career at the Legal Assistance Foundation, working on its public benefits hotline and HIV/AIDS project before starting as a staff attorney in a neighborhood office where she focused on housing and employment law. Carla, you've dedicated your career to helping others, and we appreciate you being here to help us.
Thank you so much for inviting me and the kind introduction. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Martin. I got this right. Yes. Martin Pizzola, where are you? You go by Marty, right?
I go by Marty. Yes, that's correct.
I'm gonna call you Marty. He's with Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. This is a volunteer-based organization. He's the supervisor for the Early Resolution Program and Illinois Armed Forces Legal Aid Network. Supervising these programs means making sure clients' legal needs being met and ensuring their volunteer attorneys have the tools necessary to assist clients. These clients come to them through a centralized hotline or after being referred while in court. He's got a great career in law school. Marty was a senior managing editor of the Indiana Journal of Law and Social Equality. Kenneth and Louise Yanni, is that right?
I've never met them, but yes, I believe that's right.
Fellow, and worked at the IU nonprofit legal clinic. Did you go to Indiana University?
For law school, I did. That's this giant diploma behind me. Largest diploma ever.
Yeah, my daughter's a sophomore there.
Excellent.
Began working as a staff attorney in the Cook County Mortgage Foreclosure Mediation Program. Immediately after taking the bar exam, spent several years representing low-income homeowners in their areas in foreclosure court. Marty, thank you so much for being with us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for hosting.
Okay, Edwin Ortiz Reyes. Edwin, where are you? Hey, can you turn on your mic and say hello?
Hi, thanks for having me, Rob.
Good to see you again. Edwin Ortiz Reyes, the Civic Engagement Coordinator for the Latino Policy Forum, working on housing policy issues as they relate to the Latino community. His focus is to address issues at the intersection of housing and immigration, works to advance equity and achieve long-term stability and prosperity for all Latinos here in Illinois. Previously, Edwin served as the lead caseworker for the Sukasa Hispanic Center program for Catholic Charities of Southwestern Ohio in Cincinnati. He provided direct services to the immigrant community in the tri-state area, native of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Edwin graduated from the University of Dayton with a BA in Political Science and Human Rights Studies. Edwin, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Jonathan Raffensberger, where are you? Hey, there he is. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
A pleasure to have you as well. As a supervising attorney with Lawyers Committee for Better Housing, LCBH, it's a nonprofit providing direct legal assistance for low-income families facing eviction and other serious legal issues related to their housing. I can imagine you have been incredibly busy this last year and a half. So his practice focuses on eviction defense, as well as litigation to end unlawful lockouts, remediate defective conditions, assert the rights of tenants in foreclosure. So we're glad to have you, Jonathan. I know you're gonna be able to provide a lot of insight for us.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks, Rob.
Guillermina, is she here? Let me see her on my, she's gonna join us. I'll introduce Guillermina Leon. She's a HUD certified housing counselor with Lucha. That's the Latin United Community Housing Association. That's been with them for over 7 years, has over 13 years of experience in the field. Bilingual, has a deep commitment and passion for working with the community. And her experience ranges from leasing to counseling to facilitating seminars and trainings and much more. We're glad to have her on the Zoom as well. So that's a look at our panel. I don't think I left anyone out, so that's terrific. Before we kind of get to some of the discussion, the conversation, I know that Iris wants to say a few things, and after Iris, Edwin will say a few things, and I think that will really kick us off. We've got some talking points, but I think a lot of stuff's going to come up just naturally through the conversation. So Iris, I'll turn over the Zoom to you, and thanks to all of you again for being here on this Thursday afternoon, taking your time out. It means a lot to ABC7 and certainly the community that's affected by this.
So much. Good afternoon. I would like to thank wls-tv and of course, Rob August. Always good to see you and its management for giving the Cook County Clerk's Office this opportunity to provide an important segment on eviction moratorium, foreclosures, and tenant and landlord protection. These issues are a few of the many items that affect the livelihood of thousands of individual families, especially the Latino community. We understand that many of our constituents throughout Cook County are financially impacted by the COVID pandemic, the possibility or the actual filing of evictions or foreclosures specifically. The pandemic has caused widespread financial and legal consequences for individuals and families that can be long-lasting and very, very devastating. As a clerk of the circuit court of Cook County, I am proud to bring you these important resources and to work with them on providing information on those subjects. And thank you everyone for participating in this. I am so thankful because this is definitely something that we have to get a handle on. I know that our courts are getting ready And I know that this is going to be very painful, but I know that my great chief deputy clerk, Janet Hunter, will talk more about the impact, that our office, especially when people are coming in, and I know that this is very, very painful for so many families out there. So thank you so much for having me on, and thank you all for being part of this team to help us educate our community, but more important is to answer those questions that are probably lingering on people's minds right now as to what we are going to do when this moratorium is completely lifted and the courts open up on these evictions. So thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much for having me on. I know that this is going to be a great panel, and I'm looking for information. Thank you so much, everyone.
Iris, appreciate you joining us this afternoon. I know Janet's going to stay with us, and we're going to lean on her to see what comes next here and what other help perhaps some people can get, because this is going to be new territory here as the moratorium expires. And I think a lot of people want to know, what can I do? What are my rights? And we're going to discuss that. Thank you, Iris. I think Jeremita's joining now, so good to see you when you can pop up. But Edwin, I know you wanted to add a few things as well, so I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll move on to a little bit more discussion.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you to the whole team at ABC7 for thinking of us at the forum and myself and including us in this important conversation. We know that the end of the eviction moratorium is looming. It's looming in 2 days, and it's weighing heavily on the minds of a lot of our community members, especially in the Latino community. Latinos have been one of the hardest hit groups by the pandemic, both in terms of jobs lost and in terms of working age deaths. And that loss of income has really led to us noticing a lot of the cracks in the tenuous housing stability that a lot of folks in the community have been living under. We Latinos have often been touted as the group with the highest civilian labor force participation. And a lot of us tend to see that as meaning that the community is economically stable. But what we do know is that Latinos are overrepresented in low wage, albeit essential, jobs in our economy, and that this has led to many of them living check to check with very little financial reserves and being just a small emergency away from really losing that housing stability and that economic stability in general. And lo and behold, here we are a year and a half into the pandemic, which has shown itself to be that big emergency that has really shown those cracks to be true. Just to give a little bit of context, Latinos across the United States in general, about 16% of Latinos live under the poverty line. Here in Illinois, we're not faring a lot better. About 14.5% of Latinos here in Illinois as of 2019 lived under the poverty line. And what we're seeing is a lot of families really fearing the effects of the eviction crisis once the moratorium ends on Saturday, and the effects that this will have on the community. We wanted to be a part of this conversation to really highlight the needs in the community and what we need to see done in order to protect our communities, keep them safe, not only in the context of the pandemic, but in the general context of long-term well-being and prosperity. With that, I'll throw it open to the group, and I'm really excited to have this conversation and to be a part.
The landlord perspective, because a lot of these landlords are in these communities, they are the ones who are equally affected by the lack of funds. And it's just this kind of domino effect. People hear tenants are at a disadvantage, and what about landlords, or vice versa? It's both. And it's problematic, especially in our Black and brown communities. So Janet, can you tell us what you see happening, let's say Monday, or what are the options for some people as all of this kind of comes to a next chapter?
Well, speaking from the clerk's office and working with Chief Judge Evans, we anticipated that when this moratorium lifts, because it's been moved several times, that we're going to be flooded with more eviction filings. As a result, we now have what is called an early resolution program. And it's where all of the eviction cases are going into like a triage room, so to speak. And they're working with different justice partners, different mediators for both the landlords and the tenants to try to see if they can come to some type of agreement. They are also letting them know what funds and what programs are available before they have to go into the regular eviction process. So that's our kind of stopgap, because we anticipate, like I said, like you said, when it's over, we know it's going to be a flood, because right now the only evictions are emergencies. But now for the people who haven't been able to pay their rent, or the landlords who haven't been collecting rent, it's all going into the early resolution program.
Marty, what about, go ahead, from your perspective, what are you seeing from landlords, and what do you think is going to happen to them next year as this comes to an end? It's not as easy as saying, hey, now you owe me the last 3 months rent. Where is it?
So one thing at the outset, I believe the governor, through one of his lieutenant governors, has already indicated that they will extend the moratorium until October 3rd. Which is when the federal moratorium that applied in many other states was originally going to expire, but then the Supreme Court ruled. But that doesn't really have any impact here in Illinois, because the Illinois moratorium is more protective, and is kind of the rules that we're operating under. So I think Jonathan, Carla, and I are all operating under the assumption that October 3rd is kind of the date that really matters. And I, the early resolution program that Janet spoke about is something that all of our organizations are also involved in, and our organization has been up and running since December, so we've been kind of, as the goalposts have been moving, we've been working with landlords and tenants.
Marty, real quick. I think you have either choose accounts going or something that is set off. Everybody can try and mute you, see if that's better. It's going to give you all a headache. Okay. Is that better?
I
Okay.
think so.
I'm still hearing an echo from someone here, but okay, I think that's good. So,
Okay.
Okay, Marty, go ahead. Sorry about that. That was a little strange.
Quite all right, 18 months of this. So
1 month 24. This thing better be over by then.
yeah. So a lot of what we are doing as far as assisting landlords go is helping them understand kind of the limits of what they're able to do right now. As far as filing cases, enforcing cases, that sort of thing, and trying to help them understand that there are alternatives to filing for eviction. Because a lot of people are really reluctant to file a suit. If you are a small family with a 2-flat and you just have one set of tenants and they live upstairs, and it's maybe somebody who you really got along well with prior to the pandemic, you don't really want to put them out on the street. And so we're helping landlords kind of access rental assistance, which has been made available through a variety of government programs, encouraging them to go through mediation through the early resolution program to try and work out some sort of agreement where they let their tenants stay a little bit longer, or agree to apply for rental assistance, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what we're doing now. We know that people will start filing more readily in October, but there's also going to be new rental assistance programs available in October directly through the court system. So that's our main goal right now for the people who really are hurting financially.
Jonathan, the same thing for you. I see you nodding your head in agreement, and that's kind of what you think is where we stand.
Yes, and just to add a little to what Marty was saying, we talk about the moratorium as if it's one thing. There are different aspects to the moratorium that have been ending at different times, and so the moratorium on landlords serving termination notices and filing eviction cases has been over for about a month and a half now. That was ended at the end of July. So the moratorium that exists now is the moratorium on actually evicting people, having the sheriff enforce the eviction orders against the tenants, go out and remove people from the property. There's also a limitation from the Supreme Court on the progress that the court can make on cases with people who have suffered an impact due to COVID-19 and are in the process of trying to apply for rental assistance.
Jonathan, are you seeing that? Are you seeing sheriffs going and because I think a lot of people hear that and they're fearful of that. Is someone going to knock on my door and tell me to get out? Are you hearing about that happening still?
At this point, that's only happening in cases where either there is an emergency circumstance that would require the tenant to be evicted sooner than they otherwise would, or where the eviction is old. It's an eviction order entered before the moratorium, or in a circumstance where it's not related to the COVID pandemic. So some evictions are happening, but not at this point evictions for non-payment where people have been impacted by the pandemic. So, it's kind of coming back to the pre-pandemic practice in a piece-by-piece fashion. There's also still in place Chicago's COVID-19 eviction protection ordinance, which adds some additional protection for Chicago tenants who had an impact due to COVID-19. The landlord is required to notify them that they can tell the landlord, I've had an impact due to COVID-19. The landlord is required to notify them that they can tell the landlord, I've suffered it again.
That echo again.
I think we've got enough. So in any case, they're required to tell the tenant that the tenant can inform the landlord. So in any case, they're required to tell the tenant that the tenant can inform the landlord.
This is, we'll fix this in a second. This is what happens to us when we're reporting in the field. It's called mixed minus. This is what happens to us when we're reporting the audio. This is what I hear in my ear. And it is the most distracting thing in the world when you hear yourself like the audio. This is what I hear in my ear. It is the most distracting thing in the world when you hear yourself like. Let's try and get that, Deanna, if you're on a call. I can talk to it. Let's try and get that, Deanna, if you're on a call. I think you'll silence that. I think we've got it. Yeah. Okay.
As Marty said, we've been at this for 18 months and we're all used to it. As Marty said, we've been at this for 18 months and we're all used to it at this.
Okay. Apologize for that, Carla. You are. Your organization helps. Apologize for that, Carla. You are. Your organization helps. We're working out of here. See if we can get that quiet. Your organization. We're working out of here. I'm going to try and keep going here, and maybe what you're talking quiet. Your organization. I'm going to try and keep going here, and maybe what you're talking. Hold on, let's do it.
All right, shall we try again?
Yes, hello.
Okay. All right.
I was going to ask you
Try again?
Yeah, I think it's good now, hopefully, fingers
Okay.
crossed. We'll figure it out. It's not good. Yeah, I think it's good now, hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll figure it out at some point.
It's giving okay, yeah, all right. I thought I had figured out the source of the echo, so I was gonna, but I think maybe we're good. I think it's Leon, something about the delay.
Okay.
So just to finish the brief thought about the COVID ordinance in Chicago, landlords are required to give tenants an additional 7 days if they are told that the tenant suffered a COVID impact, and attempt to negotiate a resolution, just like Marty was saying, out of court that can avoid the formal eviction process. So whether that be, an agreement to stay a little additional time or to make a partial payment or apply for rental assistance. I think everybody is trying to work together at this point to have as few of these cases go to an eviction order that the sheriff would enforce, which, as you say, is something that people are dreading as possible. And there are a lot of resources in place to do that. And I'm glad we're talking about them today.
And so, Carla, to you help tenants and landlords, right?
Right. We're on both sides of the equation. We see both sides where this is concerned. In normal times, there are more resources for tenants and for a very good reason. But right now we are seeing a significant uptick in landlord calls.
Are many of them in the community like we talked about? They're born and raised in those black and brown neighborhoods. They invested in those neighborhoods, and now they're faced with the real possibility of losing their investments in those neighborhoods.
Absolutely. When we are at risk of losing these mom and pop landlords, as Marty was referencing, if we're at risk of that, we're at risk of losing people who actually have some kind of incentive to keep the neighborhood a safe and good place to live. Somebody who doesn't have any kind of stake in the health of the neighborhood. There's a risk that a larger management company, for example, could take over the property, and it has no incentive really to maintain these relationships with neighbors. And these relationships are essential. People depend on their neighbors for childcare, for, sometimes for dinner, for a whole range of different kinds of services that a neighborhood can provide. But on the other hand, of course, we are seeing the tenants, and there, the risk of imminent homelessness is just one prong of this. It's a very traumatizing one, and it's a kind of displacement that affects somebody's work, a child's school. So absolutely, but let's not forget the lasting impact of an eviction. Something like how it would negatively impact a credit report, make it difficult for someone in the future to purchase a car, purchase a home, which is the largest source of inherited wealth right now.
It can wreck your credit. And a lot of these people who are renting and can't pay, they've either lost their jobs or they're living check to check anyway already.
It's just perpetuating the cycle of poverty.
And that's an important reason why sealing these eviction cases is such an important tool in protecting tenants who've been brought into the eviction process due to circumstances outside their control. And to that end, we've been really pleased to see the Illinois legislature stepping up and passing a law that, eviction cases filed during the COVID-19 emergency and economic recovery period, which extends from March of 2020 through March of 2022, those cases are going to be sealed. So the information about those cases won't be made public. And the clerk's office has been a great partner in getting those cases sealed quickly so that they're not going to be negatively impacting tenants. So that's an important thing for tenants to understand. They should be aware of the impact of these things on their credit and be looking out for it, so that if they're applying for new housing and are told that they have an eviction case that came up during the pandemic, they should be telling, contacting that screening company and telling them this case should not be reported upon. It's a sealed file. Please take it off. Because we've seen so many tenants trying to apply for new housing and being rejected because the new landlord gets a notification about the case and are assuming this is a bad tenant who won't pay their rent, when in reality, in many cases, these are people who have been stabilized, they're back at work, they're going to pay their rent just like any other tenant, and they don't deserve to be blacklisted that way. So sealing is an important thing that a really good thing that's come out of the attention to eviction that's been paid during this crisis.
And when Carla mentioned this briefly, homelessness in the Latino community, and it's different. I had uncles who came here to America and lived together as roommates to pay their rent and work blue collar jobs and barely making enough just to send money back to their families in Mexico. But a lot of times Latinos in these communities will take advantage of, well, not take advantage, they don't have a choice. They live together. And that's essentially homelessness because they can't live alone and pay the rent that they would like to for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath place. They just can't afford it. It's a different thing there. And I think a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, and I think this speaks a little bit to what Carla mentioned earlier about that community connection. Yeah, and how important that is to this community. Carla mentioned earlier about I'm getting a little bit of echo, but and how important that is to this community. In the Latino community, homelessness is experienced in ways that are different to what we perceive or what we understand to be chronic homelessness. You know, the image of families under the viaduct, that's not typically how Latinos would experience homelessness. Normally what you see is overcrowded housing. And in fact, in a city analysis, we found that Latino majority neighborhoods on average have two to four times higher rates of overcrowding than the city of Chicago as a whole. And that's because when families lose their housing, when families, you know, become homeless, the community comes together, families come together to support one another. And, you know, that isn't great in a lot of levels, but now, especially during the pandemic, the risk of overcrowding households makes it that it's not just a housing issue or housing risk. It's also a public health risk when you're having 2-3 families living in a 2-3 bedroom apartment. One of the things that is really important to think about is that a lot of the homeless services that we understand and that are provided to help people experiencing homelessness are guided by official federal definitions of what homelessness is. And these definitions explicitly exclude things like couch surfing or doubling up or overcrowding, making it so that families that are living in overcrowded households have a really difficult time accessing homelessness services, and it just compounds on top of it. I also want to bring it back because we mentioned the long-term impacts that evictions can have on folks' life and ability to secure housing. And one thing that hasn't been really discussed is the dangers of that debt burden for folks who are behind on rent. You know, even if folks are evicted, that debt doesn't go away. It doesn't magically disappear, and they can be saddled with however many months of behind rent they can be moving forward. And that's really why I think that the emergency rental assistance programs that the city and the state and the county and the federal government have put in place are so important to make sure that folks aren't saddled long-term with that debt, and why it's so important that we get this money out, get it into landlords' hands and into tenants' hands, and really ease that economic burden on families and households.
And Guillermina is with the Latin United Community Housing Association. LUCHA is the acronym, which is United Community Housing word for struggle. I mean, LUCHA is the acronym. Deals with a lot of what word for struggle. I mean, deals with a lot of what ethnic.
Well, we actually see firsthand a lot of what the community is going through, and I think since COVID started, we have seen an increase in the amount of requests from landlords because they are not receiving their rent in terms of what they can do because they're having now trouble paying their mortgages. So that's one side of the story. We also have seen a lot of tenants coming in and saying, I don't know what to do. I can't pay my rent. They're asking me for the apartment. And so firsthand, we have been getting involved with government in terms of how to help participate in giving assistance to these individuals that are being affected by COVID, whether they're landlords or whether they are tenants. Last year, we actually participated when funds came out from the CARES Act, and we were able to provide assistance to the community directly in that way by helping them fill out applications for assistance. Lots of times they give it in as you have mentioned before, in batches. Sometimes it was for tenants to apply, sometimes it was the landlords could apply. That was kind of like the second time. I understand from my organization yesterday, we were approved to assist again in a new batch of assistance that has come through now from the Chicago CARES Act, the Chicago Rental Assistance, where now both renters and landlords are going to be able to apply for this assistance. Through it, they will be able to receive assistance for up to 12 months. And an additional 3-month extension where they can reapply if they can ensure housing stability in case they're still threatened after the 12 months of assistance. And this is great news because both sides are affected in different ways, but to know that each one of them can be able to apply for assistance. And and actually receive up to months is wonderful. I do want to make a note that priority is being given to where there is the threat of eviction for this assistance, which is great because this being the topic precisely today, it's good to know that they can apply. So whether they call one of the organizations involved, there's a number of them, Catholic Charities and Heartland Human Services, Lawyers Committee for Better Housing, Spanish Coalition, Lucha, amongst others. They can go directly, we can assist them in applying, and or they can go to allchicago.org and receive the information from there on where and how to apply, as well as all of the eligibility criteria.
Marty, we talk about a lot of these landlords being in the communities that they've invested. We talk about a lot of these landlords being in the communities that they've invested. Or what are their options? Because some of them don't want to get into a legal battle. What are their options? They have a relationship with their tenants, right? And they're kind of boxed in a legal battle. To some of them, not collecting that rent and they need it. Yet they're in that community, they're well known in that community, and they're really in a crunch.
Sorry, there was a little feedback. The question is kind of what are their options besides filing for eviction?
Especially for the ones who are members of the community, who have invested, these landlords who have lived there their whole lives and they're generational, and they don't want to be seen as the person who kicked somebody out. That's their last resort, but they also need money. I mean, they've got to pay their bills too.
Yeah, so I mean the rental assistance programs that we are all plugging, we're plugging for a reason, because this is money that was set aside under both the former president's administration and under President Biden's administration, distribute to states and municipalities to get this money and try and move it into people's pockets as quickly as possible, who have felt the financial impact, because 18 months of unpaid rent can really impact somebody who's on a fixed income and was counting on, their upstairs neighbor to be the rest of their income. And so
I mean, it's an incredible amount of money for that.
yeah. And without rentals, I mean, the reason that a lot of people aren't able to pay rent is no fault of their own. Like every restaurant in the city basically laid off all their employees in March of last year. So tons of people who were making minimum wage lost their jobs overnight. And it's not like a decision they made. It was for the greater good, and now we have to make sure that the greater good doesn't have this long-term financial impact. So we are encouraging anyone we meet with, whether it's through the early resolution program in court, or somebody who is referred to us through the Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt hotline run by Carpels. We are encouraging them to look into applying for rental assistance as an alternative, because rental assistance is real money. It's money that can be used to pay off for a homeowner a mortgage that may be coming due or maybe long overdue due to COVID. And a judgment in an eviction case, is while it can kind of torment a tenant for a long time, it's not easy to collect that debt. That's a whole separate legal proceeding that can take a while and is not, neither eviction court nor the collections courts are necessarily a walk in the park. I think we've done a lot to make it easier for people to access the court system, especially during COVID. But there are still, you still are held to the same standard as a lawyer, whether you're a landlord or a tenant. And a lot of folks, landlords who are filing cases right now are going to court, and on that first date, if they don't have an attorney, they've probably missed a step and their cases are being dismissed. And so that is why we are all pushing for rental assistance, because that ultimately resolves a lot of the issues.
People ask Jonathan about that, the emergency rental assistance, because I think some people who might be watching this need that, and they have no idea how to get. You read that and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, where the heck do I go?
Yeah, it can be confusing. I mean, there have been a number of different rental assistance programs at the state level, at the
Yeah, it can be
city level.
confusing. I mean, there have been
Um,
a number of different rental assistance programs at the state level, at the city level.
I think we're getting a little feedback again. It can be easy to confuse the programs and which ones are open, and which ones are accepting
It can be easy to confuse the programs and which ones are open and which ones are.
I think, Guillermina, this might be your mic. Would you mind muting?
I think, Guillermina, this might be your mic. Would you mind muting?
Yeah.
Thank you. So in any case, there have been a lot of programs that can be a lot of confusion right now. As Guillermina was mentioning, the city of Chicago has a program that's open through its partner agencies, which include LCBH, which it sounds like include Lucha. The contacting the city about that assistance, the attendants can be directed to those programs that are open and accepting applications. And they do pay a substantial amount, up to 12 months back and 3 months forward, with a limit of $25,000. So for tenants who are way behind, which is a lot of tenants right now, we're seeing tenants who haven't been able to pay their rent since last year, balances of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. That is really the best option to try to resolve their situation and stay in their homes. There's also a court-based rental assistance program that is coming online at the state level now, and then there's a parallel Cook County program that is being currently set up and will be hopefully implemented by the end of the month, that tenants can access through the early resolution program that Janet was discussing. Tenants who come into eviction court on the first date can elect to be transferred over into this early resolution program where they can speak with an attorney or a mediator or an advocate who can help them assess their situation. And with this program can also, at that time, direct them to somebody who can help them with that application. And the idea is to have it be a streamlined process that can work with the tenant, with the landlord, and with the court to get that assistance in a time frame that works with the eviction case. So that's a program that we have a lot of expectation and hope for, and will supplement the assistance that's currently available through the city and through the state. Another tool for accessing assistance, rentervention.com is a website that LCBH that works with LCBH to advise tenants in a number of situations, and you can use that as a way to get into a rental assistance process. So rentervention.com.
Intervention, okay. And Carla, you might be able to discuss this. I'll throw it your way. We're talking about how to find emergency rental assistance, but I think this can apply to landlords or tenants who are overwhelmed with that, and they just like, how do I get legal representation? What do I do to find I don't have money to pay my rent, or I'm not getting money from my renters, let alone seeking legal assistance that I can't afford. What do you tell people like that?
Call us. We're the front line. We know the referrals. Part of what we're doing is really educating people on the availability of these rental assistance programs and how to apply for them. We do refer to Rentervention. We have Eviction Help Illinois that can also guide people to the correct rental assistance program, the most appropriate one for them. The problem that we're having, that I think is actually happening statewide, is getting the word out that these rental programs exist. There just aren't enough people really applying for this. And this applies even in Cook County, maybe more in the rest of the state, but many people don't have internet access, don't have easy access to a social service agency that can help them through the process. This is not necessarily an easy thing for somebody to do, especially when we're talking about people who are really in distress, are having trouble, I'm getting evicted. How am I right now going to learn how to upload a document? That's not the number one priority for them. And we'd like to make it the number one priority to make rental assistance the number one priority, as we've all been talking about, because that, again, I can't emphasize enough, that is the solution, is a massive cash infusion that gets distributed evenly, equitably, all over the place.
How does that happen, I guess, is the next thing, even distribution, right? I mean, it seems difficult. Janet, do you have any advice for people about the early resolution program, how they participate? You touched a little bit on this earlier. What do they do? Because the county does offer, and Carla said this a little bit earlier, that there are options for you before you got to go to court.
In the clerk's office, we also do take advantage of our justice partners, and we do refer people a lot to Carpels and Illinois Legal Aid Online, because we know there's a lot of programs out there, but our office may not necessarily know the specifics, the requirements, the deadlines. So we refer them to other agencies where they can get the help. And currently, any eviction that's filed into our system now automatically goes into early resolution program. So that's your first step, regardless of what, if you're going for back rent or just possession of your property, everything goes into the early resolution program. So you get access to the mediators once you're in that program. And also all of the filings are automatically sealed upon filing.
And I'll just say, I think one thing just about like how to get people to this, a lot of my colleagues in legal aid, probably folks at other nonprofits, a lot of what we do is say, I'm glad you called me. I'm not quite the right person to talk to. Call this other phone number and they will help you. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. So we, especially with the early resolution program, we try and do a lot more warm handshakes where it's, I'm going to have this other person call you. And so that's something we do just so that people don't get lost in the cracks, whether they're landlords or tenants. And especially for rental assistance, we try and have on all our external facing things the latest information, but like our external facing website. But it goes out of date like a week after we get something new up there. So picking up the phone and calling Carpels, calling the early resolution program is definitely a great starting point, because they are going to send you to a lawyer if you really need legal help. They're going to send you to rental assistance if rental assistance is going to be the best solution to your problem. And Carpels is kind of an alphabet soup, which also gets confusing, but Carpels is part of CLAD, the Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt Program, as is early resolution program. And that phone number is required to be included in all eviction complaints now. So when a tenant gets served by the sheriff with an eviction complaint, that phone number is on the 5th page in English, Spanish, and Polish so far. And well, the phone number is the same, but the explanation is in those languages. So it is one of those things where we want to make sure people actually read what they see and call that phone number.
And they, Edwin, I think you're me and Cabral also talk about this. Getting people to make that call, Edwin, is hard. It's hard for people to ask for help, and sometimes Latinos are scared. They don't know what's going to happen. They're fearful for a lot of reasons. How do you get? Because Marty's right. And Carla said this too, and Jonathan, there's options, but you have to take those. And are you seeing that? Are people being more willing to reach out and ask for help, or is that something you're also pushing for, to say ask for it? It's okay, because it is there. It's hard to find sometimes. You're also pushing for it to say ask for it. It's okay, because it is there.
Yeah,
sometimes.
And I mean, there's always fear in the Latino community when it comes to these things, especially when you're talking about publicly funded assistance programs. There is the fear that this might have repercussions on their immigration status or on a variety of other things. So it is really important for us to meet people where they're at and build that community trust, so that they feel comfortable reaching out and engaging with these programs. It's also really important for these programs to increase their outreach in the Latino community and in all communities, and meet people where they're at. Spanish language, we're speaking specifically about the Latino community, Spanish language outreach, partnering with community-based organizations that have that infrastructure and have done that legwork to build those deep relationships in the community. That's really the best way that we can get people comfortable and informed about what's available, and get the money into their hands and into the landlords. Informed about what's available, and get the money into their hands and into the hands of landlords.
I want to say that I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think one of the things that, or one of the reasons why it helps that organizations like ours, or HUD organizations overall, are there, is to precisely assist the community. And I agree with Rob in terms of sometimes they're fearful of making the call. And it's okay to say, you know, COVID has affected everybody in one way or another. You're not the only one needing assistance, so we're glad you called. Our job is there to help them firsthand, whether it is through the paperwork, the application. If you feel that you can't do it on your own, give us a call at Lucha, give any HUD agency a call. Precisely the entities that I mentioned earlier participating are there for that purpose. In terms of the rental assistance that I mentioned that is coming down from the CARES Act, whether you're a landlord or whether you're a renter, a tenant, you can apply for this assistance. So again, you can call any one of these agencies. allchicago.org is also providing the information. And there's a number where you can call overall and request the application or the assistance or ask any questions. Can I provide it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to provide it. It's
absolutely.
Great. 833.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Great. 833-543-0931. It is available Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, and you can call. This is for information on requesting the rental assistance for all those involved or that need due to COVID. Again, 833-543-0931. And if you want to see the information online and who can assist you directly, the names of the organizations like ours is at allchicago.org. Lucha is assisting with this endeavor. If you want to give us a call, our number is 773-489-8484, 773-489-8484. Casey Kenna is leading this program in terms of the coordination. So feel free to reach out to Lucha. We are there to assist you in any way we can.
Terrific. And as people are watching this in our we're streaming live right now on our website, and all of your names are included there. They can hopefully get more information that way. I knew this hour was going to fly by. We've got about 7 minutes left. So I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to kind of wrap things up and add anything you want to. Carla, I think I'll start with you because you mentioned a massive cash infusion would be the answer. I'll start with you. That doesn't happen with bureaucracy. And do you think that will happen, or what needs to be done for that to happen? If you wanted to touch that, or just give some of your final thoughts as we wrap things up this afternoon.
Sure, there are so many administrative burdens, but again, I think the problem is reaching an audience, letting people know that these resources are out there. And we have to be mindful that this is affecting landlords and tenants. This is affecting all of us, really. I think that's the most realistic way to put this. We're all affected by this. I want people to have our phone number, 312-738-9200. And I'd like people to come visit our services tab under carpels.org. Thank you so much for hosting, Rob.
Okay, and that's CARPLS is the acronym.
You got it, CARPLS.org.
Terrific, terrific. Jonathan, I'm going to go over to you if you want to add any final thoughts as well.
Thanks, Rob. I mean, I think Carla's got the right idea here. I mean, it's rental assistance is going to be the good solution for a lot of cases right now, especially with those high balances. And so, you know, I think one of the issues that we're facing in addition to education is trust. I think there are a lot of
one of the issues that we're facing
who don't trust that if they complete the application and do what they're supposed to do, they're actually going to get paid. And I think we've seen through practice at this point, these programs have been open since the spring. Landlords are getting checks. Landlords are getting checks up to the $25,000 limit. So the money is there. And if the tenants and the landlords work together, they can get it and they can actually solve their problem rather than have somebody be evicted and have a judgment that the landlord's not going to be able to collect. So we'd certainly encourage everybody to go to cookcountylegalaid.org if they're not in court yet to get connected to these programs. And if tenants need help specifically, lcbh.org or rentintervention.com. Thank you.
I think the great advice from a few of you was, I said, how do you ask for help? And it's hard. You just say, call us. We can help. You got to get that first step to do it because there is help there. And a lot more people are going to need it in the coming weeks and months and maybe years. Marty, I wanted to throw it over to you if you wanted to add any final thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think a couple things, I as far as news coverage for rental assistance, I think has really focused on certain states that are not successfully distributing money. Illinois is not one of those states, and especially not here in Cook County. I don't have the exact numbers, but we are successfully distributing the money. It's going into landlords' pockets. Cases are being avoided, or there's people are having their cases dismissed, filing for rental assistance with their tenants and getting that money and realizing, okay, I don't need to refile. And the other thing that I think is worth mentioning, especially given that this audience, Hispanic Heritage Month, is I believe most of the programs are available, even if you you're undocumented, because we've certainly had both. We've helped undocumented landlords apply, navigate the eviction system. Assistance is available in pretty much any language. Whether it's Spanish or something else. And so those are just kind of important things I would just want to point out given the audience here. And for the folks who are thinking about filing a lawsuit or have been served with papers, that assistance is also available in English, Spanish, Polish. We have all the languages through a language line service. And then we also have some native speakers on staff of the various programs.
Terrific points, I think, especially for undocumented folks who may have some hesitation in pointing out the state of Illinois. And the county, Janet, has been very proactive. I don't know if you have any advice to tenants or landlords, Janet, as we wrap this up, and then I'll go to Edwin and we'll finish with Yermina. We just got about 3 minutes, guys.
I would just say the clerk's office is here to assist. We are open. You can still come into the office, or we have electronic filing. We do have staff to assist you in both in person and online. So again, reach out. We don't run any programs, but we can help you navigate the eviction process.
Got it. Edwin, keep doing great things. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think everything's been covered. I think it's really important to highlight that these programs are in fact available regardless of immigration status to everyone, to landlords and tenants, and that there's really good things happening and being moved on here in the city and in the state to protect tenants and protect landlords. Two things that are just on the top of my mind, the just cause ordinance to prevent no cause evictions in the city of Chicago and to help tenants with relocation fees in the case of qualified evictions without cause, and as well as House Bill 2775 on sorts of income discrimination that's currently in the state Senate. Here in Cook County and in Chicago, we have those protections already in place, but this really codify it for the rest of the state and kind of fill in that legal gray area with a lot of these emergency rental assistance programs. There's so much that is being done already. We just need to keep pushing for it and make sure that the community is informed and knows how to access all these programs.
Yermina, any last thoughts you want to add? Yermina?
Yes, I'd like to say that for tenants as much as for landlords can come to ask for assistance with us if they're wondering if they're going to lose their home because of hardship resulting from COVID. So we are there to assist with foreclosure prevention and counseling as well.
I'm glad you included the number and all the information for our viewers.
And reach out, don't be afraid. Help is there from all of us.
The number and all the information for our viewers. If you don't mind muting your mic, and I think we've wrapped it up. All of you have muted your mics. Jonathan, Marty, Janet, Edwin, Carla, and Yermina, as a journalist, when I get to do these things with people like you who are truly making a difference, it's humbling. all of you dedicating your careers to helping those in need, and then taking your time to do this. I can't understate how proud I am to be a part of this and just narrate the great work that all of you are doing during these hard times. And I just want to thank all of you. It's just been so interesting, and I learned a lot. I studied a lot about this, and for you to share the advice and the information you did, thank you. ABC7, thanks all of you. And thanks to those of you who watched, and have a great day. Have a great weekend. Try and enjoy the weather. And I'll see you on the news at 4. I got to go get my makeup now. So thanks to all of you. And we'll go ahead and end the town hall. Just wonderful things, and a pleasure to be a part of all of your day today for an hour. Thank you.